Join me as I dive into the chilling world of crime scene investigation and attempt to uncover the dark secrets behind one of the most baffling cases of recent years, the mysterious disappearance and alleged crimes of fugitives still on the run. On a quiet morning in September 2018, what began as a routine day would soon become a nightmare that would haunt communities and investigators for years to come. David Carter, a 39-year-old man, had no idea that his life was about to be cut tragically short. Known to his friends as a calm and dependable individual, Carter's routine existence in Michigan offered little warning of a horror that was looming. The last confirmed sighting of him was ordinary, the sort of moments that people often overlook. Commuting, checking in at work, perhaps chatting with neighbors. But that ordinary day would take a sinister turn, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Authorities discovered David's body along a stretch of I-75 near Hancock, Ohio. The scene was grim and shocking, the result of an act so calculated and brutal that it immediately drew national attention. Reports indicated that the body had been dismembered, a detail that sent ripples of horror through the communities that knew him and those following the case from afar. While the circumstances were horrifying, it was not the first time authorities had been confronted with such calculated violence. What set this case apart was the disappearance of the alleged suspect, Tamera Renee Williams, a 29-year-old phlebotomist from Michigan. From the outset, investigators faced immense challenges. Dismemberment is a crime that often leaves fragmented evidence, complicating forensic analysis. When a suspect disappears, the difficulty multiplies exponentially. Williams, the alleged perpetrator, vanished after the crime, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty. Law enforcement immediately launched a multi-state investigation, coordinating with local police departments, the FBI, and state authorities in an attempt to track her down. Every tip, every lead, every fragment of evidence became crucial in piecing together the sequence of events leading to the crime. The public response to the case was immediate. Friends and family of David Carter were devastated, struggling to reconcile the tragedy with the normalcy of his daily life. News outlets across the country reported the grim details, highlighting not only the nature of the crime, but the ongoing manhunt for Williams. Social media amplified the story, with residents sharing concerns, theories, and in some cases, potential sightings of the fugitive. The combination of a brutal act and a missing suspect captured the attention of a public fascinated by the unfolding mystery. Authorities described Williams as intelligent, resourceful, and elusive. Her disappearance suggested careful planning, as if she had anticipated the possibility of law enforcement closing in. To aid in her capture, she was placed on the U.S. Marshal's 15 Most Wanted Fugitives list in 2023, 5 years after the initial crime. A reward was offered for information leading to her arrest, signaling the seriousness with which federal authorities were approaching the case. Despite these measures, she remained at large, moving the investigation from a local tragedy to a nationwide pursuit. For investigators, the challenges extended beyond simply locating Williams. Understanding her motive, her psychological state, and the dynamics of her relationship with David Carter became crucial in predicting her potential movements and patterns. Each interview with friends, colleagues, and family members painted a picture of a complex individual, one whose ordinary professional life masked potential depths of deception or instability. Experts in criminal psychology and fugitive behavior were brought in to advise law enforcement on strategies to anticipate her next steps. While the search for Williams continued, David Carter's story remained central to the narrative. Investigators worked tirelessly to uncover every aspect of his life, his routines, relationships, and interactions leading up to the crime. It became clear that the act was not random. It had been meticulously planned. Yet the exact circumstances, the trigger for such brutality, and the sequence of events remained elusive. Every uncovered detail, however minor, became a piece in the larger puzzle. The impact of this crime extended beyond the immediate victims. Families across Michigan and Ohio were left with heightened fears about safety and security. Communities discussed how ordinary lives could intersect tragically with extraordinary violence. Local authorities held press conferences urging residents to come forward with any information that could lead to Williams' apprehension, reinforcing that public cooperation was crucial in a case that spanned state lines and involved a fugitive who had already proven capable of evading capture. This was a case that highlighted the intersection of personal tragedy and investigative complexity. The dismemberment of David Carter, the disappearance of Tamera Williams, and the nationwide effort to locate her became a story emblematic of unresolved mysteries that continue to haunt law enforcement and the public alike. It was not just a story of crime committed. It was a narrative of pursuit, strategy, psychology, and the tireless effort to bring closure to a grieving community. The story of Tamera Renee Williams begins to take shape when we step into her world, a life that, on the surface, seemed ordinary, even routine, yet concealed layers of complexity that investigators would soon explore. Williams, a 29-year-old phlebotomist from Michigan, maintained a professional career that, to many who knew her, painted a picture of stability. Friends and colleagues described her as meticulous, organized, and quietly dedicated to her work. But the events surrounding David Carter's death revealed a side of her that no one fully anticipated, a capacity for planning, eluding law enforcement, and allegedly violence that was chilling in its precision. Investigators began to construct a timeline, piecing together the days and hours leading up to Carter's death. Their first question: what led Williams in her life as a professional to committing an act so extreme that it would shock the nation? Interviews with family, friends, and co-workers revealed that her relationship with David Carter had not always been stable. Sources hinted at tension and occasional arguments, but nothing that could, in hindsight, fully explain the severity of the alleged crime. The challenge for investigators was clear. Understanding motive required understanding a person, her patterns, and her psyche. The more authorities delved into her life, the more complex the narrative became. Williams had moved through the city unnoticed in many respects. Her routines were unremarkable, yet they gave her a familiarity with her surroundings that may have facilitated her alleged crime. She was described as intelligent and resourceful, qualities that, in this context, became part of a chilling puzzle. The same skills that made her competent in her professional life now cast a shadow over her personal choices. Law enforcement discovered evidence suggesting that the crime had been meticulously planned. The act of dismemberment, the disposal along a major interstate in Ohio, and the subsequent disappearance all pointed to premeditation rather than impulsivity. Each step in this narrative required forethought, preparation, execution, and escape. For the FBI and local police, unraveling these steps was both a scientific and psychological endeavor. Every detail, from digital footprints to witness testimonies, was critical. As investigators pieced together Williams' movements, patterns emerged that helped them understand how she managed to evade capture for so long. She appeared to have anticipated potential investigative methods, covering her tracks in ways that were subtle but deliberate. The inclusion of her on the U.S. Marshal's 15 Most Wanted list was not just a procedural step. It was a strategic move designed to mobilize resources nationwide, acknowledging that capturing her would require coordination, expertise, and public vigilance. Beyond the logistics of the manhunt, investigators focused on the dynamics of her relationship with David Carter. Friends and acquaintances described moments of closeness and tension, periods of normalcy interrupted by private conflicts. Experts in criminal behavior pointed out that intimate relationships often provide both motive and opportunity in cases like this. While the exact nature of the conflict between Williams and Carter may never be fully known, authorities considered all possibilities. Financial disputes, personal disagreements, or deeper psychological factors that could have culminated in the tragic events of September 2018. Media coverage played a dual role in this investigation. On one hand, it amplified public awareness, encouraging tips and potential sightings. On the other, it introduced challenges as rumors and speculation complicated the narrative. Social media in particular became a modern tool in the search for fugitives, allowing law enforcement to reach a wider audience quickly, while also creating an environment where misinformation could flourish. Authorities needed to balance public engagement with careful verification of facts. Every reported sighting, every tip had to be scrutinized, investigated, and cross-referenced. The FBI and local police employed a combination of traditional and modern techniques to track Williams. Surveillance records, vehicle tracking, digital footprints, and informant reports were all analyzed in painstaking detail. Investigators recognized that time was a critical factor. The longer a fugitive remained at large, the more opportunities they had to alter routines, establish new identities, and avoid capture. This urgency transformed a local homicide investigation into a complex, nationwide pursuit, with every law enforcement agency along potential paths of travel on alert. Williams' alleged actions also raised broader questions about safety, trust, and the hidden dangers that sometimes exist in ordinary lives. Friends and colleagues, many of whom had never suspected her of wrongdoing, struggled to reconcile the image they had with the allegations. Communities across Michigan and Ohio were reminded that appearances can be deceiving and that even seemingly mundane lives can intersect with extraordinary acts of violence. Psychologists and criminal profilers consulted on the case offered insights into her possible mindset. They suggested that individuals capable of planning such acts often display a mixture of intelligence, resourcefulness, and emotional detachment, traits that enable careful execution while minimizing detection. Profilers emphasized that understanding Williams' behavioral patterns was as critical as tracking her physical movements. Predicting where she might appear or how she might react under pressure required nuanced psychological analysis. The pursuit of Tamera Renee Williams stretched far beyond the borders of Michigan. What began as a local investigation quickly escalated into a nationwide manhunt, drawing in federal authorities, state police, and local law enforcement agencies. Williams had vanished into a world that seemed ordinary on the surface, yet the meticulous planning and resourcefulness attributed to her made the task of locating her profoundly challenging. Every lead became crucial, every tip was scrutinized, and the search demanded a combination of strategy, persistence, and at times, sheer intuition. Law enforcement agencies coordinated closely, sharing intelligence across jurisdictions. The FBI played a pivotal role, analyzing patterns, tracing digital footprints, and examining any possible connections that could pinpoint Williams' location. Authorities explored a range of scenarios. Did she remain in Michigan, moving carefully within familiar territory? Had she fled to another state entirely, taking advantage of interstate travel to avoid detection? Each possibility shaped the strategy of the hunt, requiring constant adjustments and reassessment of available information. Williams' alleged ability to cover her tracks posed significant challenges. Surveillance footage, digital communication records, and witness statements were meticulously examined, yet gaps remained. Investigators knew they were chasing a suspect who had the foresight to plan both the crime and her disappearance. Her addition to the U.S. Marshal's 15 Most Wanted list in 2023 was both a warning and a strategic maneuver, an acknowledgement that the fugitive's elusiveness required mobilizing resources nationwide. The reward offered for information was not just an incentive but a lifeline, connecting law enforcement to the public in the hope that someone, somewhere, had seen her. As part of the manhunt, authorities revisited locations tied to Williams' life. Her workplace, familiar neighborhoods, and frequent travel routes were all investigated for potential leads. Experts in fugitive behavior suggested that individuals in Williams' position might either stay hidden in familiar areas or attempt to establish a new identity in distant locations. Profilers considered psychological patterns, behavioral tendencies, and risk assessments to predict her next moves. Each scenario carried weight. A single misstep in analysis could allow a suspect to remain at large for months, even years. The public's role in the manhunt proved critical. Social media amplified the reach of law enforcement announcements, enabling communities across the nation to participate in the search. Photos, descriptive profiles, and official updates circulated widely, creating a network of vigilance. However, this came with complications. False sightings, hoaxes, and misinformation were frequent, forcing authorities to devote time and resources to verifying claims. Despite these challenges, public engagement remained a cornerstone of the pursuit. Every tip had the potential to bring them closer to locating Williams. Investigators also examined the wider context of her movements after crime. Travel patterns along interstate highways, hotel stays, and transactions involving financial institutions became vital areas of inquiry. Digital footprints, such as phone signals and online activity, were traced to establish a timeline of her disappearance. While these methods provided valuable insights, they also underscored the skill and caution attributed to Williams. She appeared to anticipate the possibility of surveillance, leaving behind only fragmented traces that complicated the search. Throughout the investigation, law enforcement faced a psychological challenge of pursuing a suspect whose mind remained unknowable. Williams' alleged planning, intelligence, and resourcefulness suggested she could adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Profilers and behavioral analysts studied her past actions, attempting to understand patterns that might reveal her next step. Each breakthrough, each insight, became a potential turning point in the case, yet each unanswered question reminded authorities of the complexity of the hunt. Despite the challenges, there were moments of progress. Tips from local residents, patterns identified through forensic analysis, and collaborative efforts across jurisdictions occasionally narrowed the search. Investigators documented each lead meticulously, cross-referencing statements and corroborating evidence wherever possible. These incremental steps were vital. In cases involving fugitive suspects, patience and persistence often proved as critical as speed. Every verified sighting, every piece of tangible evidence brought law enforcement closer to the ultimate goal, apprehending Williams and bringing resolution to David Carter's family. The nationwide search also highlighted broader issues within law enforcement: coordination across agencies, the need for up-to-date databases, and the challenges of tracking individuals who actively avoid detection underscored systemic difficulties in pursuing fugitives. The case became not just a hunt for one person, but a study in investigative strategy, resource allocation, and the challenges of modern law enforcement in an era of mobility, technology, and anonymity. While Williams remained at large, the impact of the manhunt was felt widely. Communities in Michigan and Ohio remained vigilant, aware that one individual's disappearance could ripple across states and affect public perception of safety. News coverage kept the story alive, reinforcing the importance of public cooperation and ongoing investigative effort. For those following the case, it became clear that Williams' disappearance was not just a missing person scenario. It was sophisticated evasion requiring continuous vigilance, careful planning, and expert analysis. The story of Tamera Renee Williams and David Carter reaches its most haunting stage when we consider the aftermath, the ripple effects of a violent act that has left a lasting mark on a community, a family, and a nation. While the manhunt for Williams continues, the questions and consequences of her alleged crime remain painfully real. The investigation, the public fear, and emotional toll converge into a narrative that is as much about unresolved tension as it is about a search for justice. For David Carter's family, the years since September 2018 have been filled with grief, confusion, and longing for closure. Losing a loved one to violence is a life-altering event, but losing them under circumstances shrouded in mystery intensifies the trauma. The family has had to navigate not only personal loss, but also the uncertainties of a case that spans states, agencies, and years. Every new lead, every tip, offers a glimmer of hope, yet each dead end serves as a reminder of the elusive nature of justice. Communities in Michigan and Ohio have also felt the weight of the case. The knowledge that someone capable of such violence remains at large has heightened public awareness of safety, personal security, and the complexities of law enforcement. Local authorities have emphasized the importance of vigilance, community cooperation, and reporting any suspicious activity, underscoring that public engagement is a critical component in tracking fugitives and preventing further tragedy. Law enforcement agencies have reflected on the challenges posed by this investigation. The case highlights the difficulties in tracking fugitives who demonstrate intelligence, planning, and adaptability. From the coordination between local police and the FBI to the analysis of digital footprints, forensic evidence, and witness statements, each step has tested the limits of investigative strategy. It also underscores the broader issues in law enforcement: resource constraints, the need for comprehensive databases, and the importance of interagency communication. Yet, even amid these challenges, there's progress. Public awareness campaigns, the 15 Most Wanted listing, and the rewards for information have ensured that Williams' disappearance remains an active concern. Law enforcement continues to receive tips, re-examines old evidence, and adapts its strategy as new information emerges. Each effort represents a step toward resolution, a step toward justice for David Carter, and a demonstration of the perseverance of those dedicated to solving complex cases. The story also offers critical lessons about the unpredictability of human behavior, the fragility of safety, and the vigilance required in modern society. While Williams' professional life as a phlebotomist may have seemed ordinary, the actions she allegedly took serve as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. For viewers, it is a cautionary tale, a reflection on how seemingly ordinary relationships can conceal extraordinary danger, and how law enforcement relies not only on evidence but on community awareness and cooperation to bring closure to unresolved cases. Looking at the broader picture, this case is emblematic of unresolved crimes across the nation. It is not an isolated event, but part of a continuum of criminal investigations where the victim's families seek answers and the public watches in anticipation. It highlights the tireless work of law enforcement officers, the critical role of forensic science, and the evolving strategies used to track fugitives who are adept at eluding capture. Each unsolved case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, public awareness, and the ongoing quest for justice. As we reflect on the tragedy of David Carter and the ongoing search for Tamera Renee Williams, the story is far from complete. Every tip, every sighting, and every piece of evidence has the potential to bring this case closer to resolution. Yet it also invites us to consider the human cost, the grief of a family, the tension in communities, and the enduring mystery of a fugitive who remains elusive. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Tamera Renee Williams, or if you think you may have seen someone matching her description, contact the FBI or local law enforcement immediately. Every tip can make a difference. Share this story to raise awareness, not only to help capture a fugitive, but to honor the memory of David Carter. Engage with your local communities, stay vigilant, and support investigative efforts that keep the public safe. By spreading awareness and reporting what you know, you become part of the effort to bring justice and closure to unresolved crimes. The story of Tamera Renee Williams and David Carter is a haunting reminder of how one moment can change countless lives, how the pursuit of justice can span years, and how the vigilance of communities and law enforcement is vital in solving the most challenging cases. While the manhunt continues, sharing knowledge, staying informed, and participating responsibly in the quest for truth is the most powerful action anyone can take.